like to call the meeting to order.
Yeah, I'll call the meeting to order at 12:01. Stand and do the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Mayor Hall. Here. Brent Weed. Yo. Sam Gibbert. Sean Gibbert. And Kevin Marcus. Here. Roll call. Here. Dave Ringler.
Present.
Sarah Howell. Here. And Terry Hopkins is here. Any public comment? Tonight, before I approve the agenda,
Mr. Hopkins,
just mentioned.
with the public comments, are we not accepting any because there are no public members present?
Yeah. That's what I said. I should see somebody on that.
Just want to make sure that was stated for the record.
John Tate.
The record's right here.
And one of the things that's not on our agenda is our, what do you call that?
Reorganization, and then we have to reissue the oaths for those who have been reappointed.
What she said. So we want to add that before consent agenda or before approval agenda?
Where you feel most appropriate.
You can put that, it's 4.5 before the consent agenda. Is that? That's just in case you come up with something else. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Madam Clerk?
Alright, so we have two reappointments, Perry and Dave. So I will issue both your oaths right now, but at the same time, so just, you have to raise your right hand for me. I, David Ringler, and I, Perry Hopkins, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, the City Charter and Code of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs, and that I will faithfully discharge my duties as Downtown Development Authority Board of Director member to the best of my abilities.
Thank you.
And then, if you'd like to elect the new chairperson and vice chairperson, I will issue those oaths.
Are there any nominations for chairperson? Here. For Perry Hopkins. Anyone else? Like to take a vote?
Sure, all those in favor of Perry?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Congratulations, Mr. Hopkins. Mr. Hopkins, would you like to move for a chair? Vice chair?
Vice Chair. We need a nomination, is that what you said?
Take a motion for a nomination for vice chair.
Entertain a motion for a vice chairperson?
I would nominate Mr. Ringler.
Am I already, or is it Sally?
And now Perry.
What did I just do?
That's just your reissue, because you were.
Actually, he was for this past year, or Sally was the year before.
I guess we were using an old form.
It's fine, I think the last year was going just fine. I was here 4 times, yes.
Any other motions? a roll. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
All right.
Oh,
You guys can both say it again, and I'll read it again.
Congratulate him now.
Yes.
Congratulations.
I, Perry Hopkins, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, the City Charter and Code of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of Downtown Development Authority Board of Directors to the best of my abilities.
Okay, sure, but
Sorry,
wrong one, Dave.
wrong one.
Dave,
Sorry, I gotta read it. I, Dave Ringler, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, the City Charter and Code of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of Downtown Development Authority Board of Directors, Vice Chairperson to the best of my ability.
I do. This is less expensive than last time, so I do.
And you don't get babies.
Thank you.
To consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 28, 2016 regular meeting.
So move.
Support. Moving and support. Any, conversation? None? All in favor? Say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Unfinished business. Item A. Zoom rally proposal language. See that?
Yeah, last time we had a discussion about the ballot language and the tip language that might come in from it. And Ms. Powell wanted to see the actual ballot language that was presented. Just for now, 2 copies, if anyone wants a copy. And it does inform the public that when they voted for it, that the tip tax might be applied to it and that the DDAs might take their portion of it. So I guess whether the public was informed or not, I guess it's moved based on the ballot language. I still haven't heard whether we'd actually receive any money from that amount, but based on what today's meeting brings out, that might be a moot point. Don't know if there were any follow-ups on that.
Who would you talk to see if that money's available?
I would direct Darla Falcon to
Okay.
find out if we're going to get any money from it. But it kind of gets in the way of what the rest of the game plan is, as far as I'm concerned. Of course, it's not my decision to do, but I'm trying to lead this board towards financial security for the future. I'm not sure that provides it.
Well, I understand that we have very minute amount when divvied up between all the different DDAs, but all the numbers together would give more for the zoos.
If we didn't take it.
Right.
You know, I think the majority of the people voted yes on it was for the zoo and the museum. They didn't realize that some of the outer municipalities could tap into some of that revenue, so, and it's not much.
Why was it even ever seen that way? What's the connection?
We don't know why. That was the language that was put in there and
Politicians have to answer that question.
yeah, whoever launched that support the zoo and the museum, apparently it'll feed some other parties that included that into there, not realizing or did it. We would not get,
Some of the DDA somewhere.
we wouldn't get much of any, majority of it will go to the museum. And the browbeating part of it is that if the municipalities take it, well, they're gonna get beat up because you took it away from the zoo and the museum, so however it works out.
Well, even that aside, it's like, okay, 100 of us can get $5, or they can get all of it, you know.
So we all see how it unravels. We don't know nothing.
I don't think think this board has to take any action at this point, but I want to present the information that was asked for last time.
From what I read about it, there is a designated amount that will go to DDAs. And I don't know if we, I don't know the process, we apply for something, maybe we'll get $1,000, and as much as we've had to beg for money, that's a lot of money. But there is a designated part for DDAs that won't take money away from the zoo or the museum, but I could be wrong on that. If it's out there,
I think Jerry is saying the perception would be you're taking it away from them. Even if there was a earmark for DDAs, that, I think that's what you meant.
And I have received media calls on this.
Oh, yeah.
That's surprising, because normally once they vote for something, nobody ever asks for the money.
I think on the east side of the state, they have a DIA and zoo tax where this all started out. So, yeah, people started asking at that point.
Media, you mean the TV station was called?
Yes.
what do they say, Mark?
They want to know what the city's plans were for, whether we're going to take money away from the zoo.
That's a fair and honest media you're talking about.
Well, I guess we're depending on your perspective, but
That's the perspective, my perspective. No question about it.
but like I said, at this point, this board has no action it needs to take in that regard, and especially considering the other things on the agenda. I think we need to figure out what this board's, process is going to be for the next year.
I agree.
Alright, there's nothing more into that, we'll go on to item
Mr.
B.
Hoffman, there's a White Pine Trail sign which was added about an hour ago.
There's item B.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were skipping over item B. My apologies.
Item B, White Pine Trail signs. The waivers, currently, we've been, waiting from a, go from Scott Slavens that, Hensley Builders is going to build us the signs that we was originally trying to get city council to pay for, but. And so, Mike was checking with Scott Slavens, and evidently they've got standards now for what they.
Yeah, so I've been in contact with Mr. Slavens multiple times over the last couple months. I write him emails on the regular to keep up to date. And just today, about 10 o'clock, I received a phone call from him and then subsequently an email. I printed out this. There's 2 copies on the table. And what he essentially told me was that the DNR has decided to go with a unified system of signage on their trails. And so,
That makes no sense.
the cities and municipalities are no longer going to be able to put up their signage in the White Pine right-of-way. He also indicated to me that the signs would be prohibitively expensive, in my opinion. I think he said $7,000, which I think is ridiculous, but that's the DNR's thing. So I did ask Mr. Stressman to identify locations that the city owned or had easements that we could put our signage at. And the only truly appropriate place, in my opinion, is at the staging area on the east side of the parking lot.
Like the other one.
Yeah. So I hoped that because we have our benches there right next to the trail, that maybe we had some right to put them there, which would be right next to the trail. But it does not appear that we have that right. So, I asked Mr. Stressman to also look down at Muskegon/17 Mile Road, and there's no good place to put it there. I'm going to have him look further north in the city for the north end of the city, but I think our main direction was to the south. And at this point, I can't identify the location that we have access to. So, if we want to, I think we can pursue paying the amounts that the DNR wants for their established signs, which is not, finalized at this point. I said, when will it be finalized? He says, 6 months to a year. So we'd have to wait even 6 months to a year to know whether that's even feasible. or we could proceed with putting a sign in the city's property at the staging area, which would still require approval from council.
So they're dictating the design, but then they're paying for it or we're paying for it?
It was a little unclear when I asked that question, and so I said, well, would it be available for the municipality to purchase that at, our cost and do that? He says, well, not really, you'd still have to get approval from us, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, well, are you going to provide us with signs? He says, no. So, they're neither providing, nor are they specifically permitting, but that might change in 6 months to a year.
Who's in charge? Imagine that's what's going to dictate it.
Well, I think this is state bureaucracy at its finest. Which is unfortunate, because of course people complain the same about us. But for the time being, those seem to be our options.
See, the White Pine Trail is 100-foot right of way down through there, and the only reason the city has a property there, there's some spurs off there that the city basically owns. And once you get up to 17, there's no right of ways or no siding right of ways in there. So therefore, we only have 100-foot right of way there, and they own it. Clear to Rockford. Where up by the staging area, the old foundry area was, the old depot there was on a private siding. That's why we have that little corner weird spot.
And that was donated by that family there, right?
Yeah.
Gus.
So we could do a little bit more in-depth research about that plot of land, and we can go out there and see where a sign might be effective. But I think the whole intention was for the sign to be viewable by bicyclists and walkers and runners on the trail, and I don't think it's going to be if it's on the opposite side of the parking lot.
They're not going to allow you anything next to the trail. That's what it comes down to.
So I guess that's my report from Scott Slater.
Looking at some of these, it kind of look like they're going to be Jetsons, so is it going to be that long before we get them?
The reason they're $7,000 is because that was probably 30, just to draw it out.
More than.
Well, and after discussing the price, I indicated to him that maybe they need to go out for another bid, which he indicated that they probably were. So who knows what the ultimate price will be, but that's the number he floated to me.
$7,000, that's,
The districts for that.
none of our signs that we had that was 3 times the signs that high.
Well, like you said, they maybe have to import them from the future.
Well, I can give you history on that. You know those little bitty spindly posts that the yield and stop sign come on? Those are special orders for the state when they come out of UP. All their signs have to be on that specific post when it comes out of the UP.
So little posts, you mean?
Yep, that little bitty post.
Well, some legislator got that, that's fine.
You can have it.
Well, and so, not knowing whether they'll even permit us to use their signs, I think that if we're gonna put a sign up, we need to look at doing our own sign on our own property.
Now, is that 100 foot from the center or 100 foot from the edge?
They own, it's a total 100-foot right of way. From the center of the old rail, 50 either side.
They want their 50 feet, they want me to shut the back door of the dealership.
50. If you do the center line of the rail track, it's 50 feet out of the percentage of the right of way. The railroad
50 feet per center.
There's some slivers cut out of them.
No, I swear that they told me it was 17 feet from the center when,
They want me to sign a lease.
because I was looking at
10 years.
a different piece of property that I was looking at when I talked to D&R about it that was on the trail.
This right of way is 100.
Okay.
Well, so we can obviously take a look at a map and identify where we might be able to do it, but just from the few minutes I had to prepare, in the staging area, it appears we'd have to be on the east side of the parking lot to be safe at this point.
What if some sign an overhead sign?
What if someone like me, I own property right up to it, from one street to another street, what if I agreed to let you put a sign on my place?
And that's something we can look into.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I wanted to do that, I'm just saying what if?
Because I think further up the trail, so what's the road immediately north to No, you need it north of the staging area.
Oh, that's Maple.
So if we have a Maple right of way, we might be able to get closer to the trail there, but then it would be away from the staging area. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like I said, I haven't had the time to prepare in the last hour and a half.
Well, we're talking about having a kiosk sign there at the staging area, you know, for making that like a welcome center. But that wouldn't be the same as what we was wanting with the north and the south end of town.
Don't have the library and all that, don't they own property right up to?
Yep, and they're working on, I think the CDBT is working on getting approval to use that for the amphitheater.
Yeah.
So I think the amphitheater would actually be in there right away.
It's on the edge, there's a little siding up there, and that's where they're projecting it, the footprint of that theater would be on that. But they're still wanting minimum setback.
Can we anticipate that other municipalities will have the same issues that we're talking about right now in terms of signage? Be it Sand Lake, be it Rockford, be it Contact Park, be it Howard City, whoever.
As far as the White Pine Trail is concerned,
Right.
I don't see why not.
Oh, maybe we should, check with them or somebody check, see what they're gonna do.
Well, the sign in Sand Lake is right next to the path. Right by the bank, up there.
Right behind it, there used to be a little depot there, and it was right next to the trail.
Maybe it's just off there, the
Well,
wrong way or something.
and
It's very close.
I did discuss that with Mr. Slavin as well, because I've ridden my bike down to Rockford, and they have signs right there on the trail saying 2 miles Rockford or whatever. And I said, well, can we put signs like that up? He says, no, because after this policy is implemented, we're gonna go and rip all those signs out.
That's
Believe
gonna
that.
be nice, that's gonna be nice.
Yeah, well, that's real, that's good. User friendly.
So, I mean, I can't advocate for signs disappearing in the middle of the night, but if somebody wanted to test that theory, you know.
Put them up big enough, put them up big enough. Well, that's what you can. We might as well go on, there's not much we can do.
So we'll take a look at that up there, and
Sure, we
see
can
if
look at,
Hesley Builders still wants to do one for just there versus the three.
yeah, or where we could put them too.
Alright. Under new business. Update from the DEA Brownfield Board, CS Brewing Company.
Yeah, Darrell asked me to put this on the agenda. I don't have anything to add to it, other than the fact that, I believe we cut a check to Mr. Ringu's company.
Which is a nice change.
See, the brownfield development, it's mechanism for the city to give other businesses to come in and redevelop, or for a better word, to it's a contaminated site, and what it does, he goes in and cleans it up and does everything, and then over the years, the city reimburses them over that for tax abatement.
It's approved cost that we submitted there.
Correct. And it all has to go through the DNR and all the above, and approved site plan remediation. That's just some senseless history.
So, I know how.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hopefully you can say them again next year.
Alright. Item would be recommendation of city attorney to dissolve DEA, would that be established?
Yep, so following up from last time, we talked about whether we could redo the TIP plan or whether we'd have to dissolve the DDA. So the city attorney and I talked about this on multiple occasions, and we both agree that the safest course of action is to dissolve the DDA and then reestablish. As far as the mechanism of doing it, it's basically the same mechanism. So whether we were to change the TIP or if we were to change the DDA, it's about the same amount of effort, same amount of time. Just one is a little bit safer than the other. So what we would eventually end up doing is we would put an ordinance in front of the city council. City council would vote on that ordinance to take the DDA out of existence. And then in the, intervening time, while the DDA is not in existence, I would ask this board to continue on as a, DDA advisory committee of some sort, so we can continue to meet. And then at some point in the near future, we'd bring the DDA back into existence. And like we stated before, this is about resetting the tax base because we're so underwater that any property, the increase in property values is not being captured by this body. So I would ask, I guess, for a recommendation.
Would they be able to dissolve and reestablish in the same meeting, or is that one that would go to the next meeting?
Yeah, exactly. Is there a certain length of time that it has to be non-existent?
I don't know if there's a legally required length of time, but I think it would be appropriate to take it out of existence in one meeting and then establish it in another meeting. Because otherwise it looks 100% like you're doing it just for that reason. And I think there's another reason we need to do it, and that is to determine whether this board has anything to accomplish. One of the reasons I think it needs to go out of existence is because, so under the law, the reason you would take a DDA out of existence is whether it has achieved its purposes. And as far as I'm concerned, and this is up to your opinion, right now, without funds and without money coming in, you've fulfilled the purpose that you can. Okay? So have you established your purpose? Yes. With the amount of money you have, you've fulfilled the purpose that you can. So we would take a month off. We would determine whether it's worth it to bring the DDA back and whether we have a purpose in the future, which I think we do. So that's just the mechanism by which it would be accomplished.
So, would that require a motion now to dissolve the DDA, or would you wait and...
Well, item C here is recommended, so this body would make a motion to recommend to the city council to adopt an ordinance doing it.
So it would require an ordinance.
When we reestablish, then we would be able to address the boundaries.
Yes, because we would then have to reestablish what the sixth district will look like.
That's the whole reason to do it.
Sorry?
That's the whole reason to do it. So you can reestablish the district.
Yes and no. So what Mr. Riegler worked on with the subcommittee, with the boundaries, is one part of it. So there's a map which delineates the boundaries of which businesses, the property values would go towards this board. And that's, the map. The other side of it is the base value. So when this was originally established, all the values were set at a base amount. And then we got the 2008 issue with property taxes, everything going into the toilet. So we're currently still below that line. So what we'd like to do now is reestablish the line lower. That way when property values start going up, we start catching them up sooner.
I'm sorry. I probably should have remembered that.
Yeah, and what it does, it sets the tax base here, and anything that's future development, read in it. And, I'll reappoint everybody here.
So I strongly believe in the value of the DDA. So it would be my recommendation to bring it back into existence. But I think it's appropriate for the public to have their say, and I think it's appropriate to present to the public why we think it's important. And that gets down into D and E and F. So if we wanted to, we could table C until the end of the meeting, and we can discuss the other items first.
Well, if we're making a motion to recommend it, that doesn't dissolve it yet, it would still have to be dissolved by council, so it
Correct.
doesn't matter whatever it comes. So I would make a motion to recommend to city council to adopt an ordinance dissolving the DDA board.
Second. On discussion on that, when we bring this to city council for that vote, then we also have under a discussion item about reopening it later. That way we don't have to wait 2 months when we go to bring it back.
Yeah, I'd imagine that when it's brought in front of council, it will be very similar to what I've done here, and that is, ordinance to dissolve it, plans for bringing it back, reasons for bringing it back, etc. It's not my intention to just dissolve it and then leave it hanging. So the city council will certainly have its opportunity to discuss it.
Could that happen?
What?
Dissolve and not come back.
Sure.
3 meetings the rest of the year.
Huh?
Saving 3 meetings the rest of the year.
We just come to your place once.
Yeah, it certainly could, but that wouldn't be my intention. Now, one of the things I'm working on with Dr. Falcon and the city attorney is whether it's worth it to do it. Because, you know, right now we have to figure out what the actual base level is, and then determine whether the property values are actually going up. And if they're still going down, there's no point dissolving the DBA at this point, because we're not gaining anything from doing it. You want to hit a bottom level or know that you're going up, you know, to make it worth your while. And another thing is, and I'm not speaking for anybody in particular, or anybody really, if we hold a public meeting on the reestablishment of the DBA, and you have 3,500 people come in here from members of the public and they say we don't want it, then the council might very well decide not to do it. It's against the public interest. Is it my intention to do that? No. But is it possible? Yes.
That was one of the reasons why one of our former DDA members told me that not to ever let it dissolve, he said most likely wouldn't do that.
I would fight it hard.
I would disagree with that, especially when we've got a couple good advocates down there.
Well,
I would assume that.
you know, I feel
I
it's
think
vital
to
board.
the city manager's point that at this juncture, we really don't have any resources to do anything is the issue. Have we fulfilled our purpose under the current scenario? We kind of have. I mean, we've been, in the 2 years that I've been involved with everything we've talked about doing, we can't do because we don't have the money.
I would
What's
think,
the point of keeping it if we can't do it?
I would think also too, once he gets his facts from the treasurer and the attorney, and present it to the council, he would probably recommend not to dissolve it until we get more info. I'm just speaking out loud.
Well, yeah, I certainly wouldn't ask for the actual dissolution until we have a game plan to bring it back. But I also can't force council to do anything.
Yeah, you know, I would be for reappointing it. I mean, it's a valid board, commission.
So have you established in this board part-time or not? Based on the values of property?
That's still one of the things I'm working on with the city attorney. I mean, all indications appear that it is smart.
Okay, so are we getting ahead of ourselves by doing this now?
Yes and no, because the next meeting of this board is not until April. And I don't know when I'll have the ability to present it to council, and I don't want, you know, to come up next month and say, well, you know, the DBA board hasn't met, and then we push this to April, and now we're looking at May for council.
Well, we've always got the option of doing special meetings in between.
Sure, but, you know, I try not to schedule things for special meetings if I don't have to. And, I mean, we've got 3 members from council sitting here. I think you guys are aware of what's going on.
We're in that always matter.
But I tend to agree with Mr. Ringler insofar as this board has accomplished all that it can with the resources it has. And the only way forward, unfortunately, seems to be dissolving it and then bringing it back.
Or taking
Well, exactly, then we wouldn't be doing any of that because we're not on the list any longer, because we have no
Which
DBA.
is why I said maybe we should talk about that one later.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the things that I saw the DDA accomplish in years past, it would be a wonderful thing to be able to do just even a fraction of those things again. So that's my opinion.
So like I said, if this board wants to, we can table this motion until the end, and we can talk about the other things first, which I think will give you more of an idea of what my thoughts are moving forward. But I would have to I guess Mr. Hopkins would have to entertain a motion to that effect.
I will entertain a motion to table to the end.
Support. Great, I'll make that motion.
Just like that.
So the motion that he made,
Is tabled until the end. Assuming that we have a vote that,
so we still wanna do it.
we have to
You have
have
to
to vote on the motion to table to the end of the meeting.
correct.
And then if you guys want to rescind your vote, you can, for your motion, you
Put
can.
out a vote on it if you want.
I believe Mr. Ringo has to withdraw his motion.
But if we're tabling it,
Yeah, right now we're just tabling it. We have to vote on tabling it, then we can bring it back to the end, and then if we want to rescind it, we can.
do a roll call for tabling. Mayor Hall,
Yes.
Greg,
Sure.
Sam,
Sure.
Kevin,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Dave,
Sure.
Sally. C. No, we're on D, right? Yeah. Request city council form a downtown development committee to determine feasibility of reforming downtown development authority.
Yeah, I mentioned this briefly while we were talking. I would ask that this board continue to operate in some form, whatever we want to call it. So if for some reason you're taken out of existence prior to your April meeting, I would ask that this board continue to meet at its regular time so we can still do the business of the DDA, I guess, in limbo.
I would motion that we request the city council form a committee replicating the Downtown Development Authority to determine feasibility of reforming the Downtown Development Authority.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign?
Would that necessarily mean the city council chooses this group, or?
Yeah, it would be this group.
It doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to be, they can choose who they want, but
This group for now. Trust
I
me.
think it's when the mayor's authority.
Yeah,
Trust me, I'm the one that gets to make that
pretty
choice.
sure the mayor.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm brought up a good point. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
They could pick some other people that, just because.
I
I
think-
don't know why,
So
but
you do 3 more meetings this year.
Yes, I should have left the discussion before we voted.
It's harder
Try to
than,
get for lunch.
harder than it is to get people on any of the board commission. I would definitely hope you folks would continue to stay on this committee.
I thought this was my way out.
No, I can't get out, you can't either, Sam.
Just because you clean my leaves,
And I appreciate you guys' time and effort, you know, some days it seems like we do nothing, but actually, we do a lot.
Okay, so if I can move on.
Item E.
Current, I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
Thank you. Current near future DDA tasks to be covered by the city. If this board goes out of existence, I'd like a list of what tasks is currently being accomplished by this board that the city would then have to take on. From what I understand, and this is from an outsider looking in, the only thing that this board currently does is they accept $1,500 from city council, and then they use that money to do flower boxes. So are there other tasks that this board does during the year that if it was not in existence, we would need the city to accomplish?
I think that's it. So they'd have to take the money from themselves.
Benches we could do,
Yeah, but,
the city.
it won't cost the city, and we just paid for the permit. C.S. Brewery and my tea shop both paid $100 to have them, benches brought in, bolted down, and then taken back in the fall, which they never got bolted down and never got taken back in the fall, so it's almost spring now.
Okay.
So I would say that the two businesses that paid for that fee, since they only got 50% of the service last year, they should get the other 50% for this next year.
Sure, you can go and complain with the city manager.
City Hall's open 9 to 5.
The break for lunch.
104.
Except for lunch.
So are there any other tasks that you guys can think of that the city would have to take over in the meanwhile?
Are you like danging the board or something, tell us we didn't do nothing, is that what that's all about?
No, it had any money.
This is true.
No, but it's, yeah,
It is.
we
I mean,
spent,
it's
we
no fun
spent,
about it, but I mean, it's
we
it's
spent a
great
lot,
ideas.
we spent how much time talking about benches and signs, no, we don't need money, it really is kind of silly.
It is.
It's a waste of time, you know, but it's time, I don't mean that.
No,
Certainly, we would like to do, be
We're trying.
involved in beautification efforts and efforts to promote downtown, but as I said, we don't have any money to do that.
Do you water the flowers?
City does.
Okay, but doesn't the money come out of DDA?
Yeah.
Well,
It comes out of the money that the city gives us.
I mean, who actually came to this realization, is it you?
About what?
That we're not doing anything because we don't have money?
Well,
I mean, I think it's a
I
great
think we all came to that realization, they did
to
things.
the board.
yeah, I mean, you know, keeping in mind I've only been here since August, when you look at the budget, you see that there's $1,500 being donated to the board, which is not a lot of money, but, you know, then you're not capturing any of your own, tax money. Doesn't take a whole lot to put two and two together.
Well, I appreciate your leadership. And I appreciate you coming to that conclusion, so maybe we can go forward.
that's where we're gonna go.
So,
We did buy signs and have them installed and pay the city to install them, didn't we?
Which, yes, I really like that parking sign that points into the top of Colbrook to be moved so it can be seen somewhere.
Do we have any money in our,
Well, the DPW hung it there, I don't know why they hung it there. So
do
there's
we have any
money
money in our account, have it moved, you know?
I think maybe when I get some free time, I'm gonna do my Main Street, work I've been putting in front of council, we can identify some parking signs that maybe need to be relocated.
Is that one where the trees go
The
bloom?
question is just what ongoing tasks the city has to do, so right now it's the flower boxes. That's the only thing that they would need to take over. The other stuff are things we wanna do, but we're not.
Sure. Okay.
And that, just to not be negative, but 1,500, I'll do it for 500. I'll water it once a week, or once every 3 days.
I wanna see.
And then we'll have $1,000 to do something else. I'll do it.
I'll go with the beer.
I don't,
I'll bring the beer.
yeah, fine.
I don't wanna see that. I really don't.
Burning in rows of beer, water, and flowers.
I think which one goes to the flowers?
Remember one time I spent 2 days killing weeds against the curbs by myself, remember that? I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
You bought the weed killer, the city bought the weed killer, all that spray, and it looked better, they died.
I'd offer to help, but I don't have a green thumb as evidenced by the 2 flowers I killed this week, in my office.
This stuff's even better, it kills them so you deliberately.
But, my wife has a green thumb, so maybe she can help out. Love you, honey. Okay.
But if we could've got to keep the money we didn't spend and banked it one year to the next, we would've had an accumulation where we could've done something.
Sure.
That's not the way it's written.
And that's something that we talked about, but again, moving forward, if we're gonna be capturing tip taxes, that might not be necessary. So, something we'll consider if the council still has to provide money to this board. But again, I'm hoping that's not a problem moving forward.
Yeah.
Still wouldn't be a bad idea to address that, though, and allow us to accumulate.
I think we did discuss that last time. This board recommended to me that I approach council, but that doesn't happen until the new budget year.
See, at the end of the budget, normally on all budgets, it sweeps everything out and goes back.
Yeah, so what I would do as city manager is when I put the new budget together for next year, I'd look and see how much money this board still has left over. And then I would add that to the $1,500 you get for next year. I mean, it's a simple mechanism. And then sorry?
I was gonna say the snow removal should be that way too. I've known, last couple of years, we haven't had as big of an issue, but I know that the one year, they take back whatever we don't use each year. If they would put that earmark for the next year in case we need it.
That's a city council.
See, but the snow removal comes out of maintenance, whether it's blacktop or moving snow, it's winter maintenance. So
And not to this board.
City council.
Yeah.
that's a whole nother.
I don't think we spent any money this year, did we, as a DDA?
No.
Shouldn't we have like
Well,
$500 in there?
Flowers, plots.
Yeah, that's been probably siphoned out
I
for
think
last
it's all
year.
spent.
So,
Okay.
some of it, I don't know, that would be an accountant.
But is Ms. Falcon doing the accounting for this board?
Yes.
It'd be on a general line item for the DDA, what's balance.
It seems like there should be some left in there if we,
Before she came, they could have swept it right out. Okay? I'll just say no more.
Well, there's nothing else, I guess we're on the strategic planning session for the future work of the Downtown Development Authority and public forum.
Sure. So about a month ago, Mr. Hopkins provided me with this, which I printed out 10 copies to the table. And I think it's a good primer for goals that this board could look into accomplishing in the future. And I think it's important that this board has a goal and direction. Because again, just in my short time I've been here, I think this board has been muddled in like what Mr. Ringler was saying, talking about signs and talking about, this and that, but not really having a clearly defined path to what we want to do as a board. And so the whole, point of accomplishing all this stuff is so that this board has money to do stuff. Well, so I'm working on the money part. Let's work on the stuff part. And so I provided this to you guys to look at, and I would strongly recommend that this board put together a workshop session that we could sit down and identify tasks and goals that this board would like to accomplish in the next year or two. Of course, I can't promise how much money will be available to it. I will talk to council about continuing to give $1,500. And again, we're going to see about maybe getting a millage too. But if we don't have goals in mind, then what are we doing? So, I guess discussion on that point.
Is there any way that you can look back into the 2006 records to see what the DDA paid for this? I'm sure it wasn't cheap.
I guess.
Who was it done by?
And what is that?
How was the lady that?
It's more elaborate than this.
Yeah, she actually was the one that kinda did a whole survey of the town facades, came back with recommendations, actually was kinda going out talking to different businesses about working on their facades, getting grant money, how to get the grant money. That was all part of the facade program.
Sure. Okay, but so as a board, a facade improvement program is only one aspect of what this board can accomplish. And you have to tailor the goals of this board to the amount of money that's going to be available too. And like I said, I can't say how much money is going to be available, but I would recommend that this board look at 1, 3, 5-year plans, small tasks, medium tasks, big tasks, and see what they think is important for the city. Something like, filling the cracks in the sidewalks. That's something that this DDA board could do theoretically.
Excuse me, now, plans for the city or plans for the DDA portion of the city?
Well, the DDA portion of the city. Sorry.
Only big project we would do would only be the DDA project
Yeah, so
area.
the thing about DDA boards is, they're quasi-governmental. They have the goal of improving the downtown area. It's not overly specific about how it goes about accomplishing that task. And you can also do research into what other DDAs do, what other kind of programs they implement. But of course, this board is limited by money. But if you're going to sell it to the public, and you're going to sell it to the council and say, yeah, we took it out of existence, but we want to bring it back, here's the reason we're bringing it back. This is what we want to do. This is how we plan to improve the city. And if we don't have that to present to council, I don't know what this board's doing then.
So then who's gonna present that?
Well, presenting it, I guess, is the second step. Formulating, I think, is the first step. So I would recommend we put together a workshop session of some sort where we can get together on an informal basis and talk some of these things out. Have people bring their research in, say, well, I see the Rockford DD did this, or I heard that the Sparta board is thinking about that, whatever. Plus, with the new library complex, is there anything this board can think of that we might be able to do to help that out and make that more appealing? Or storefronts, or whatever. So I would suggest that. Put together a workshop session.
Happy to sit on that and happy to host it.
Pleasure.
Get you in for life.
Gift cards are gonna be burned up.
I have like,
Lions Club. You really did that tonight.
Yeah, 4 to 9. I was going to go over there for lunch until I realized that it's not 4 o'clock yet. I guess I'll make your discussion about whether that's a good idea, first of all.
obviously it's a good idea, I sent it out to David, if you're willing to do that, I think you just pick a time convenient and give people a call and see if they show up and.
The emails you sent out, is everybody's email on that?
Yeah, I just
Sure,
changed my
reply all.
yeah.
Okay.
I would do it if you wanna do it sooner than later, because once I get March, and I just get busy, I'm not gonna take the time. Well, that won't be true of everybody again.
When's our plan to get Lou Bender here, and maybe the DDA folks could come in in and listen to his,
Yeah, it's kind of in a holding pattern right now, mostly because it's extremely expensive.
yeah.
Some of the stuff that we're talking about having Lou Brenner come in, he can
Well,
teach some of them classes.
and so what we talked about was maybe me leading council in a strategic planning session, because it was like $5,000 or $6,000, which is a lot of money. So again, with my free time, I can set that up, but maybe this board could help start up a process. Because I'm sure whatever goals this board comes up with, the city council will be interested in as well.
It gives us insight of what direction this board wants to go.
Well, and for the city has its own desires, so.
Yeah.
If everyone doesn't mind looking at calendar real quick, I'm just gonna look out for 3 weeks, that gives everybody a little time to do their own research, but I'm looking at Tuesday, February 7th.
What time?
Say 11 a.m. and then we can meet and have lunch. Does that sound okay?
Sure. Are you proposing at the brewery?
I would propose, yeah, we can host it in my segment, it won't be that busy during the morning, so.
Okay.
I'll be out of town next month, so
Sure. I'll eat your lunch for you.
come up with some good ideas.
And of course, it doesn't have to be a one-time thing either. Certainly, it's a good first step.
I've been talking with Michael here about planning a strategic planning meeting and having the DDA, the chamber, the key players here in town, everybody come in and we'll have a brainstorming session. Where do we want the city to go? What do we want it to do? And itemize our priority, where we want it to go, and then everybody will vote on it, and the top ones will rise to the top, and then we can focus on that in the future, where we want this place to go.
No. Sorry.
Go ahead.
If I could just look ahead a little bit, and this is kind of above and beyond this board. One of the things I like and has been touted heavily in the best practices of city management is getting the public involved. Now, anyone who's done anything finds it's very difficult to get people to come down to City Hall and watch city council meetings or whatever unless they have a personal interest in it. But my hope is with the new library and the new meeting rooms that they're going to have, after this board puts together, its list of things it'd like to see accomplished, we could then maybe take that list, invite the public to the library, and actually have public tell us what they think.
Yes.
And we could present them and say, hey, we think this sidewalk plan is great, what do you think? And then have people come in and tell us. Because sometimes, since you're all members of the community, it's nice, but it's nice to have Joe Blow on the street come in and tell us what he thinks too. So ultimately, I'd like to see that be accomplished as well.
We have some projects everybody wants done, but unless we all know the priorities, we need to move in that direction. And we've heard in the past, can't do that. Well, those people dream too small. We need to dream big.
Well, it's also a cost issue.
There it is, too.
Because if this board comes back, and I don't have any good examples, but if this board comes back and says, well, we think filling in the cracks in the sidewalk's important, and then it'll cost estimate $500. And then the board comes and says, well, we need to build a new, 60,000 seat capacity football stadium on the edge of town. It'll cost $40 million. We have to present that to the public for their ability to say, yes, that's a good idea or not. Because obviously one's something we can accomplish and one is not.
So, new playground at the new Hearts of Cedar Springs, that might be something for big future. The big future I see coming is we need to build a new fire station.
Well,
And then we need roads, we need a lot of things, so it's like, okay, where do we go?
and just one more thing, and I think maybe we should move on to the sub part, is that, again, this is a quasi-governmental body, and it can decide if it wants to help build a playground in conjunction with CDBT. It can decide if it wants to help build a fire barn or part of a fire barn. So sometimes there's intermingling, I think, of what the city's going to do and what this board's going to do. But
Well, on the design stage around the parking and all the above, the DDA would definitely have
Yep.
an insight or a say on it because it's within the DDA district.
Yep.
one board or commission that would have an approval.
Well, as far as the part of Cedar Springs, the whole boardwalk area and all that up there, that was originally DDA
There it is.
planning.
I know, that's what all these minds come together and give these projects, and then look where we're at, look what we're accomplishing. You know, yeah, it took 15 years to get it, but that was always in there, but that's to the top, to give the vision of those people there to say, yeah, the city wants this. It was DDA. And that's what this board does.
So does that sound fair? We'll see everybody on 2/7, 11 o'clock in the brewery, and come with ideas.
I'll have to check my schedule at the shop with clients, but I don't have that on my phone.
So we move on to subpart 8. We had a subcommittee formed last time, and they got together and put together a proposed DDA TIF map. Mr. Ringo, would you like to walk us through it?
So, Rose, Perry, and myself, we met and we pulled up, and this actually has my chicken scratching on it. So the orange is what the current DDA is, and then you can see from the other boundaries, there have been several different versions of the DDA in the past. The original one was just really right downtown, a little 8-block section right downtown, and then 96 had a much wider, and then there was an 06, which is the one that's highlighted in orange. We had a couple of questions that I came back and discussed with the city manager, but the two things we wanted to accomplish were try to be inclusive to business district, and make it a little simpler so we didn't have all this gerrymandering around all the nuts and crannies. The one question I think we had was the whole 96 area where currently the trailer park is in the open lot. And I think in our discussion, we probably would end up actually going back to the 96 and trying to capture that entire area rather than where we marked it off in red. But the rest of this would just be simpler, extended all the way down to South Street over to 5th, back up to 5th, and then recapture the CS manufacturing and taking that out to west. So basically it's the red area, the area outlined in red, plus the entire 96 area where the open field is that we may hope that at some point will happen. Because that would increase the value and it would provide funding for this work.
And that land is currently owned by the people who own the mobile home park. And I've had discussions with them about putting in an apartment complex. So obviously if there's an apartment complex put in there, the property values will go up significantly.
Also, for future development or expansion of Cherry Street to the west, 1.5 area out there.
Well, I think we were kind of trying to avoid going out to the highway because we wanted to focus on the downtown area. I mean, for funding purpose, yes, but I think on the other hand, we'd end up having some of our focus move away from downtown. So
Yeah.
we were trying to stay contiguous in downtown.
See, that area can be added at a later.
It can be, but I think the focus of the DDA board is the downtown area. And while, again, the law is not entirely specific, I don't think, about what areas can be included in it, I don't think it's appropriate to add areas that have business just for funding, but then not provide them with the services that the DDA board is supposed to provide. So that's why I agree with Mr. Ringo, we should keep it surrounded around the downtown area, and then use that, because the areas immediately around the downtown core do benefit from what happens on Main Street. So I'm not entirely sure the highway commercial district would benefit.
Not that far out. Maybe in the property that's just off the end of Cherry Street for future factory. And then the downtown would benefit, those people would benefit from the downtown.
Well, the Cherry Street we had going over,
Yeah, property.
it comes,
The city limits.
right, we have kind of 7th Street going south from Cherry and then Cherry extending back to west. Rose was a little easier to see where all the streets extended because she had a board here that had the roads more or less laid out, yeah. But it was helpful when we were going through this to kind of look at both of them. But south, going down to South Street captured some of the businesses that were south of